So I signed Are You With Me in my first 2 months of working for Armada. It went crazy.
Are You With Me is now 50 times platinum.
In the 2 years that I worked as an A&R for Atlantic UK, I have 0 signings to my name. Not because I didn't want to, but just simply because I could not get the approval.
What else did you find different sort of working at a major label? Hello and welcome back to Sound Advice. I am joined this week by Marwen Tlili. Marwen, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm good. It's really good to have you on your show. You're wearing your Liverpool clubber that you were telling me about earlier.
Yeah.
New fan?
Yeah, I will always support the winning team.
So, just to get started, tell me about you and tell me about like your journey in the music industry. It's a big question, but...
Yeah, where do I start? Like everyone, like 90% of people in music, I didn't plan on going into music. I actually don't have a musical background at all. I never really thought you could even make a living with music if you didn't like sing or play an instrument or, So it was like an unreachable scene for me. But then, I finished my high school. And then I went to college and I hated it and I knew I was not going to finish it. So after 6 months, I quit. And then I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. So I would just want to chill. And then it was like, nah, you can't because your high school is not a high enough grade to leave school before 18. So I had to work. So I asked my dad, who owned a restaurant at the time, if I could work in his restaurant as a waiter and connect with people there, meet people. I did. After 6 months, I met the CEO of Armada Music and I met the CEO of a TV production company. And I basically was saying that I needed an internship, even though I was not in school. So both of them offered me an internship and I decided to go with music because it felt... a little bit closer to my heart. And basically, got invited by Armada to come and talk. I went there, talked, and after that they hired me, gave me 2 months, and it's been 10 years since. That's how I got into it.
That's crazy that like this entire career that you've built all came from sort of working in a restaurant,
Yeah, it really all came by chance.
Yeah.
I never thought I was going to do this.
Yeah. So what do you think, at what point do you think you realised that you wanted to go into the sort of A&R space?
I didn't really have another choice. I didn't really have a lot of talents when I was 18, product manager. I had no knowledge of music apart from, I basically bluffed and said that I knew where to find good music. So I gave myself like a speed course on SoundCloud. And the rest is history. So I just, it sort of was the only role that was, suitable for someone my age and experience. Yeah, all A&Rs don't need experience.
So you started working at Armada Music and then at a certain point you started your own sub-label with Armada Music, The Bearded Man. How did that sort of come about?
Well, that came about because, so when I started working for Armada, it was still more known as a trance company, as trance music, because Armin is one of the owners and is sort of the face of the brand. But I had nothing with trance music, to be really honest. I love a lot of music genres, but I wasn't like, oh yeah, I'm a trance guy, I was just like, I listen to whatever. So I was one of the few guys there that was into all genres of music. And the signings I was doing fitted none of the sub-labels and none of the other A&Rs wanted to release my signings. So at one point I had 20 signings, but no sub-label to put it out on. So they just said, just start your own. And, I was just there on my own. I was just like, what am I going to do? I want to do something, with a bit of a concept behind it. So that's how that started. Also, thanks for my haters. So
it was whilst you were working with the sort of Bearded Man sub-label under Armada that I think your most famous work as an A&R came about, which is signing the producer Lost Frequencies. How did you sort of come across Lost Frequencies, and why did you decide to sign him?
SoundCloud. Um, because Are You With Me is a rework. The original is a country song from Easton Corbin. So he uploaded it as Easton Corbin, Are You With Me, Lost Frequencies remix. And it had like 60,000 plays, and I found it and I put it in my scouting playlist. So I made playlists, and every week I would go into the CEO's office and play the tracks from the scouting list. And this was one of the 30 tracks that was in there. And then, yeah, my CEO said, yeah, sign it. This is good. I like it. And then I got in touch, and it was funny because he at first thought my email was fake because I was also reaching out to some other young Belgian guys. And they all discussing with each other like, yeah, what is this? You know, this guy, who is this? Never heard of him, you know. And also I didn't have a social media presence because it was my first month. So I signed Are You With Me in my first 2 months, of working for Armada. I had no idea. It was just like, you know, it was a super basic deal and everything. I remember even I accidentally, because I had no knowledge of anything, I accidentally even delivered the unmixed, unmastered version first. So that was on Spotify the first couple of weeks because I had no idea. That is how that came about.
What do you think it was about that song that like stood out to you when you first listened to it on SoundCloud?
I like the guitars a lot. You know, I'm very much someone that, you know, if I'm honest, I think every A&R should listen with their eyes closed, you know. Like, I think it's very deceiving, and I think there's, especially in the UK, there is a big trend under A&Rs to follow hypes and, you know, not listen with ears, generally, like. So, you know, I just listened and I was just like, look, to be honest, I would be lying if I thought it was a worldwide smash. I had not enough experience, first of all, for it, but I just liked it. I was just like, oh, it feels nice, you know. But what I noticed that other people had especially strong feelings towards the track. You know, I was a bit like, oh, I didn't realize that for other people it meant so much. You know, people having tattoos of it. People sending videos of their weddings and stuff. I never thought it would be a song like that, you know. But in hindsight, yes, now it makes sense.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because it sounds like a lot of how it happened was sort of just like a gut call, right? Like
yes,
just like instinct.
Yes, yeah.
Is that something that you think? How do you think you developed that instinct? Because I mean, you were clearly doing something right. So do you think it's just something? Do you think you got lucky? Do you think you just had like an ear for the right stuff? Do you think?
I think it's a combination. I think luck would be if you do it once, but I've done it more than once. You know, I was also very worried. I thought the same thing. Is it luck? You know, what is it? Did I? Am I good? You know, are my ears good? I don't know. And still, it's something I think, you know, it's always hard to prove. It's very hard, but yeah. I think what it is always follow your gut, you know, because when I signed Are You With Me, it's a funny story. Actually, one of the senior A&Rs at Armada, who was working for the company as one of the first employees, heard the track, went into the office of the CEO and said we should unsign it. That was so bad that it would really be a bad reputation for Armada. And why are we signing elevator music and all of that? You know, because I also wanted to sign Kygo back in the day. And no one in the team was enthusiastic about it because we were still in the EDM craze. You know, Hardwell was on top, etc. when I started working. It was like the EDM wave in dance music. But yeah, I didn't really care about that. I was just like, I just like good music. And then I've even signed just singer-songwriter tracks to Armada. Just guitar and vocal, nothing else, for a dance label, you know. But that's why also with The Bearded Man, I believe it had the quote, music's so good it doesn't need a genre or something. Like, it had something along those lines. So yeah, that shows, you know.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. Like, did you have to? Was it difficult with Are You With Me and with other tracks? Did you find it difficult, sort of, especially at those early stages? You said you signed Lost Frequencies like 2 months in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was it sort of difficult to convince people higher up that you should be trusting and like your suggestions should get signed?
Well, I can actually tell you from experience how it goes, because I've also, obviously, I'm sure will talk about it later about Atlantic, but with Atlantic UK, it was very difficult to get my signings convinced. In the 2 years that I worked as an A&R for Atlantic UK, I have 0 signings to my name. Not because I didn't want to, but just simply because I could not get the approval. It was such a web of approvals that even if sometimes after 7 months I finally got the approval, the track was long gone to another label. But with Armada, no, I was lucky because I reported straight to the CEO, and the CEO just, well, you know, I know the sort of that Armada is very focused always on catalog. So I think what they saw it as like, yeah, even if his signings aren't good, we do still get increased catalog, and we can always fire him after 2 months anyway, or 6 months, or, you know, we don't have to plus my salary was extremely low. Like I was literally at the bottom of of the pit, you know, like so it was pretty risk free, and I think that was the nice thing. I and especially when my signings proved to be successful, I especially didn't have to get approval anymore, only on budgets.
Yeah, it's funny because I imagine that if you told the people working at Armada at the time that like the sort of the young intern who's been working there for 2 months is going to sign a song that's going to, I think it was saying is Are You With Me? It's now 50 times platinum, which is just insane.
Yeah, I think in Germany it went diamond. In the UK, I think it's 3 times platinum, or 2 times at least. It might be even 3 times. I'm not sure. You know, in every country, in Holland, it's like 10 times platinum. Scandinavia, I have a plaque at home, but this plaque is probably outdated, of like 12 times platinum. You know, so it went crazy. It went absolutely. But yeah, I would be lying if I said, yeah, I expected it. I didn't.
So you mentioned Atlantic earlier, and
Yeah.
sort of based off your success working with Armada, you managed to get a job working at Atlantic UK. You were talking about how it's harder to convince the people there to sign people that you recommended, but like, what else did you find different sort of working at a major label compared to working at Armada?
The culture. The major, well, there's a difference. So in the UK, I have a fun drinking game for you. If you have a lot of major label contacts, just email all of them, and for every out of office or email unavailable, take a shot. I'm sure you'll be pissed in no time. So you know, whereas in Holland there's, you know, but the game in Holland is very small, but A&Rs are in the same position much longer. Whereas in the UK they rotate. A lot of the A&Rs rotate, so the culture is different. It's very political, you know. It's very much about, you know, I'm too honest for that. I don't like playing those political games and nonsense, and you know, it's yeah, the whole structure of it, it's all about power and hunting for that promotion, and you know, like stupid things like 2 artists not working together because which A&R would get the percentage of it, you know, because they have different A&Rs. Like, and for me that's like, okay, so art is suffering from this type of nonsense.
Definitely. Why do you think it was so hard to convince like people working there to like believe in like your vision, I suppose?
Because you know, I think the mistake they make is that A&R is a very lonely job. You know, the proof is in the pudding. I believed in Are You With Me, and a lot of people didn't. And the example was even when we emailed it to UK labels for license, every single label said no in the UK, from Atlantic to Polydor to Virgin EMI to RCA, Ministry. They all said no. Only All Around the World said yes, which at the time was like, all around the world, you know, like, yeah, good luck. you know. And then a year after we released Are You With Me, we became a number one in the UK against all odds, the first number one of Armada. But had we listened to everyone in the beginning, that track would have never been signed.
Yeah. Do you think maybe it's like part of the problem is sort of, we were talking earlier about like trusting your gut and your instincts, and that like the culture at somewhere like a major label isn't about that because it's so much more corporatized?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. You are not encouraged to listen with your ears at all. They go on data. So when with Atlantic, we were working with this program called Meddling, which literally tracked Spotify, Apple, Shazam radio stations, and you could filter out all of the tracks that were signed to major labels. And it was like, okay, so basically I'm now just signing with my eyes. Do I like the track? Doesn't matter, because when I send this to my boss, he's going to say yes, because they're just looking at the stats, you know. Whereas I love going in with an artist, with a vision, working on that vision, and then it works out, you know, like that's the fun, right? Because art is subjective, and music is art, and majors tend to forget this, that music is art and art is subjective. We could go to a museum, we could look at the same painting, you could hate it, I could love it. That's the same with music. But majors don't realize that. They also love comparing. They're like, yeah, but this doesn't sound Ed Sheeran enough. You know? It's like, yeah, well, there is already.
Yeah, there's already an Ed Sheeran, isn't there?
Right? So, yeah, no, I would say there's a couple of guys. I'm not going to say that everyone is like this, but there is a couple of guys that still listen with their gut. But, yeah, especially along the lower ranks in A&R, because they love the A&R roles in the UK, like junior A&R, senior A&R, vice president A&R, senior vice president A&R, head of A&R, senior head of whatever. They have like every single role. And it's also like, yeah, but what is the difference? Isn't your job just to listen to music and basically gambling a bit, you know?
Yeah. I think I always think that it might be the difference between independent and major label, because Atlantic's a subsidiary label, right?
Yeah.
So I think one of the problems is the fact that when you're a subsidiary label, you're ultimately going to be reporting numbers to someone above you. Yep. So like things have to look like financially feasible. Whereas with someone like Armada, I guess there's more like willingness to take a risk. You know?
Yes, independents need it more, of course. You know, they have less market share, and a hit is way more life-changing for an indie than for a major, you know. If an independent label gets a hit, that could maybe mean that for the next 10 years they can hire an additional 5 people, guaranteed, based on that one hit. But also what it is, well, the structure of the major, they're all three very similar. You know, even with the subsidiaries, the subsidiaries don't mean anything. They're all Warner. They all have to abide by the same rules, by the same deal standards, you know. They all get decided in New York, you know. And above a threshold amount of the deal, they also have to get approved in New York. So you have this whole layer of approvals. You know, I said it recently to another artist. You know, he was like, "Yeah, they wouldn't increase my deal to above 100K," and I was like, "Yeah, because if they have to put 100K is a threshold in Warner, in the whole system, right? Holland, Japan, UK, whatever. When the deal goes above 100K, New York has to approve it. And then imagine there's a Dutch rapper. Like, who's going to look at it in New York? Not an A&R. It's just a finance guy going like, oh, let's see the Spotify numbers, last album. Okay, what's the recoupment? Okay, yeah, you can spend that money. That's how it goes.
Yeah.
You know? Whereas with Armada, it was just like, hey, Michael, the CEO, I like this track. I think it's dope. But they want 5,000 euro, you know? And I was like, yeah, that's quite heavy, you know? Like for an indie, that's big amounts. And then it was like, okay, oh, well, let's listen to it. Okay, we all love it. Okay, let's go for it. You know, it was way more gut feeling.
Yeah. Why did you? So you then since quit Atlantic Records. Why did you quit?
Well, it was a sort of mutual decision because I felt very frustrated because I felt like a benched football player. You know, I felt like I went from Ajax to like, I don't know, Chelsea or Liverpool. Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry. I went to Liverpool and I got benched. You know, I felt benched because it wasn't like I didn't have any signings I wanted to do. There was plenty of signings and I missed out on some quite big stuff because of it. And that's frustrating because, yeah, as an A&R, you're only as good as your last signing. And my last signing was at that point 2 years ago.
Yeah. Is there anything that you can, any artists in particular that you can say that you like missed out on that you wanted to sign?
Yeah, Lewis Capaldi.
Really?
Yeah. It doesn't matter. The leadership at Atlantic now changed anyway, so it doesn't matter if I say it. But yeah, they didn't allow me to sign him. Oh, man, I don't know if I'm gonna stir drama with this, but yeah, they no, I'm not gonna say it. But yeah, they didn't allow me to sign him for multiple reasons. Even though I was a big fan because I had bruises in my inbox. I loved it. I loved the song. It just resonated. I was like, I don't care who this is. I don't care what or anything, you know. I just want to sign it, you know. I just, based on that song, I was like, yeah, I want to put this out. This feels beautiful, you know. This feels like one of those Tom Odell songs, Another Love. It felt like, oh, this feels special, you know. And yeah, I was right. So,
do you think do you think like record deals, especially like major record label deals, do you think they're like fair to artists?
no.
Why?
Well, it's all, you know what the thing is of a deal. It's all what is fair in your eyes, you know. That's and in music the deals are, there's no standard, you know. Like that's why you see some people getting loaded of their music, and then some people with triple their stats, you know, are near bankruptcy. So it's very much what you accept. But no, I don't think they're fair because they take about 80% of your income. You know, like in art. So in the art world, when a gallery signs an artist and takes 50% of the artwork sales, that's already seen as a scam. In music, it's 80%. And back in the days, it made sense. Back in the days, it made sense because a major label or any label had to put quite a lot of money behind it. You know, you had to make physical copies. And you can't make 100 CDs. It had to be a minimum of, you know. So you had to make CDs with the risk of selling 5, you know, or vinyl. So it made sense why the cut for the label was bigger, you know, bigger the risk, bigger the reward. But nowadays, what's the risk? You know, like, no, I don't think they're fair. And a lot of artists also don't really realize, I think.
What? How do you think record deals could be fair? Because I mean, I think I've seen, I cannot remember the artist now, but I've seen a few artists recently sign some like different deals where they keep more of like, they keep a bigger percent of what they do, or they like keep the master rights or different things like that. How do you think record deals could be fair? Actually?
Right.
It's just that percentage, or do you think it's more than that?
I will give you the simplest solution to make it fair tomorrow. And I think it could be implemented tomorrow. Simple fact is, labels are always going to argue that they have to spend an investment money. Okay, cool. Recoup the investment, and after the investment, make it at least a 50-50, so that the royalty changes when the risk is gone. You know, at one point the record as recouped, you know, like it also is every incentive, right, to recoup it. But the way deals are structured, you know, like for labels, it's not a bad thing for an artist to be unrecouped because every year they deduct the unrecoupment of the balance sheet. It's as a loss. But to give you an example, if I give you €1,000 advance against 20% royalty, that means the track has to earn 5,000 to recoup your 1,000. But what happens with the 4,000?
Goes to the label.
Goes to me. Does that sound fair, or should it be like, okay, once that we recoup the 1,000 and then split the 4,000 50-50? That sounds much more fair, right?
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, well, because I do understand the whole idea of a label, because there is, I know they're not making CDs anymore, but there is still a risk there, right? Obviously, like marketing and there's costs, but I think once you've got your money back, I guess they would argue that that's then where they're going to make their money, right? That's like the business model, really.
Yes, but you know what it is? Like in an industry where a lot of creators complain about making ends meet, to say, and where there is an unhealthy level of companies going out of business, let's say management companies, independent publishing companies, where there is a system of a dominant tree, that throw then, let's say, the Sony Christmas parties, who pays for that? Where does that money come from? Where there are creators complaining that they can't make ends meet of 100 million streams. There is these other companies throwing Christmas parties with unlimited booze and food, and it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, at least give them an invite, right? At least take them to the party.
Well, that I would always say, like, hey, the invite would be the extra smack in the face. I walk around when I go to industry drinks, let's say on ADE, I'm like, guys, it's our own royalties right here, so better drink up, like it's us, they paid from our music,
Yeah. Well, I think I've got a very good idea of sort of why you sort of left the sort of major label sort of scene behind. But yeah, tell me a bit more about what you're doing now.
Yeah, I do a lot of things right now. I have a management company. I have a publishing fund, one under BMG and one under Universal. I have my own artist project. I've been running my own record label for 6 years as well. So yeah, I'm doing multi
Yeah.
like different things right now, just having fun.
Yeah. How do you balance all that? That sounds like a lot of work.
Played by day. Really, I wish I had the answer to that myself.
Yeah, I think I've spoken to a few different people about like work-life balance, and I don't think anyone's ever said this is the solution. I think the answer is always I'm figuring it out, and you just got to keep sort of moving and, like, as I said, playing it day by day.
Yeah, I think as long as you're surviving, as long as your head is above the water, you're doing something right. So as long as that is going on and you don't need to change that, then you're doing something right, Yeah.
What are your sort of goals for the future then? What's like what you're doing a lot of different projects at the moment. What would you say is like your priority and what you're trying to sort of take to the and grow and stuff?
With the management company, it's expand even more. Obviously, but I'm fortunate enough that I have a very good team around me. My business partner is running a lot, and which also allows me a bit more time because I'm very creative. Like I would say, my strength is creative. Don't ask me to do admin. Don't. I'm barely managing myself. So, but. Yeah, like, so it allows me for more creative time, and the thing with creative is I just do what inspires me. So, yeah, I don't know, tomorrow I'm going in the studio, then the day after I'm doing a management meeting, and yeah.
A lot of exciting stuff.
Yeah, and the goals are, just be the biggest and the best, I think. Aim for the stars. Worst case scenario, you land on the moon.
Yeah, that's a good philosophy to have, I think. So yeah, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for the invite.